Enjoy 1% merchant commission when you accept Lanka Pay cards. Contact these banks today.
Welcome to Times Online. Today we have with us Mrs. Shea Wickremasinghe, Group Managing Director of CBL Group. Welcome to Times Online.
Thank you.
To start off with, we know so well about your brand Munchee, but what does CBL entail?
Our group essentially is a food conglomerate, I'd like to say. And yes, everyone knows us for Munchee. That's our flagship brand, and that's how our business actually started. But over the years, we've gone into many other categories. We have brand leaders in almost every category we operate in. So if you take chocolates, we have a very large market share. Blitzberry and Revelo occupy the number one slot. If you take cereals, we have Summer Portia, which has over 75% market share. We have Lanka Soy, which is a market leader in the soy space. And we've actually grown the whole soy category with a lot of innovation. We have a brand called Shea, which is what we call our food brand, that we want to have at least one Shea product in everyone's kitchen. Shea has categories like coconut milk, spices, noodles, and it is an expanding category. It's one of our newest brands, and are the partners, along with Spa South Africa, for Spa Sri Lanka, which is a chain of supermarkets. So coming on to Munchee, which is really our flagship brand, which, our journey with Munchee has been one of innovation and bringing to Sri Lankan consumers choice and differentiation.
Which brings me to the next question of your expansion plans. What of it?
In Sri Lanka, our brands command market leadership. To drive more is almost difficult, and we've gone into multiple categories. So for expansion, we have been looking overseas, and this year is quite a thrust in that. So if you take our confectionery business, we are looking at taking Munchee globally. India is an obvious country for us to be a big player, and we have plans to do this. We have a factory in West Africa, in Ghana, looking at the African market. And through these entities, we look at other markets, because we are available in over 55 to 60 countries with our Munchee brand. We do both Munchee brand and private labels for our global business. So about 20% of Munchees is an export portfolio. We are one of the newest entrants into the coconut industry, and within this short span of about 7 years, we are the largest coconut milk exporter out of Sri Lanka. It's more or less 95% export-oriented business, and we see value in developing this. So we are looking at expanding this business in Indonesia, purely because there are a couple of reasons. When you're in export, you need to manage country risk. This is what COVID and the economic crisis brought us. So if we are to thrive in a robust exporting environment, we need to minimize that risk. And the other thing is the supply chain. While we are very involved in driving Sri Lanka's supply chain up, it takes time. So we need to be operating in a place where we have more access to coconut. We produce about between 3 and 3.5 billion nuts, depending on the year, and we really need to be producing about 4.5 billion nuts. There are countries taken initiatives, but it'll take time to see.
Could you go through your different clusters again?
What we wanted to do was to have more focus in the different business areas, because Munchee, being the flagship and the biggest brand, always got disproportionate amount of attention management-wise, and the smaller brands actually need more attention to grow. So we clustered our business confectionery, and under confectionery, we have 2 CEOs looking after our biscuit business and our chocolate confectionery business separately. In the cereal area and extrusion, we have brands like Summer Portia and Shea and Lanka Soy being overlooked by one CEO. And then we have the strong export arm, where predominantly we export coconut-based products, but we also do some fruits and other value addition products. And then we have the retail section. So how we've actually clustered our business is through brands and functionality.
Would you be introducing new products going forward?
So actually our success has been innovation right along. And one of the reasons for clustering is to have more focus on the different businesses. So yes, I mean, we are constantly introducing new products. Innovation has slowed down a bit because of COVID and the economic challenge, because now the challenge for us and the innovation drive is really how do you bring something that is more affordable to our consumers, because we saw a huge market decline, over 30% for most of our products in Sri Lanka. After the economic crisis, people don't have the same purchasing power. So that's a challenge, and we've done a lot of innovation there. We've put in new products, and our business is only as good as what we give our customers. So we are very customer centric.
I suppose that is the success of your brand as well and the company as a whole, which also brings me to the next question of competition.
We have multiple competitors in Sri Lanka, but really in the recent past, we are positioning ourselves, I should say, globally. And when I look at competitions, it's not our competitors here in Sri Lanka, but we compete with all the global brands. And it's a challenge really for companies from Sri Lanka, given the kind of restrictions we have for expansion out of Sri Lanka, the economic crisis and the control of exchange movement. But this is a challenge we have taken on, and we get external funding sources, and we are taking Munchee and our other brands globally.
Where will you be having your footprint?
What makes sense really for us is to operate in emerging markets. And that's where you get a lot of growth happening, and that's where you can take your innovation forward. We went to Ghana specifically because we already had a very thriving export business. At one time, we were doing over 25, 40-foot containers a month. And when they had a currency crisis, it didn't make sense to export the product. We had to manufacture it. And that was how we decided to set up a factory in Ghana. And Munchee has a very strong presence in Ghana, and we're competing with international global brands. We have strong expansion there, expanding our brand and expanding regionally within the African continent. The other market focus we will have, obviously, India, tough market. You have massive local giants operating there. But we're taking the challenge on. We have a small presence. We obviously would like to have a much larger presence. About coconut milk, we're looking at Indonesia. Indonesia is also one of these countries for exports, and maybe at a later stage to look at the domestic market. It's a very vibrant country which has huge economic growth. So I think the space that we're looking at, very exciting, because all these countries where we're focusing on are having huge growth. Although we are coming out of a very small economy, I think what our group has been able to demonstrate is that we are second to none, and we can take the world on. Not easy. It's very ambitious, I believe, but I believe we have the talent and the motivation to do it.
India and Ghana would be in the biscuit space or confectionery space?
As of now, yes. But again, in emerging markets, the opportunity we have is to recreate a lot of what we do in Sri Lanka. So yes, right now it is in the biscuit space, but we see a lot of other potential going forward.
Mrs. Wickremasinghe, you have also gone into modern trade a few years ago. Could you explain about this business?
CBL was one of the partners, along with John Keels and Richard Peters, that bought over Satosa for a very brief time, because that's the front end of the consumer. And when you talk about innovation and understanding consumer, having that understanding is a big plus. One of the reasons we joined with SPA is really for the model that SPA has globally, and that is working with independent retailers. So the SPA model is you work along SMEs to develop their business, giving the corporate punch, so to speak, and support so that they are able to compete on a much larger scale. Basis of how we started our business has been on a socially relevant platform. I mean, when we got into biscuits, we started with the Care biscuit, bringing a high-protein biscuit to the Sri Lankan consumer. And right along, what you see in how our group has functioned is we are very much a commercial entity, but we think it's really important to integrate what is important for development, not only for the company, but also for the country into our business. And nurturing small businesses is very much a part of that. And that is where SPA will play a role in supporting small entrepreneurs. We did a program with IFC during COVID to bring in more women into the retail business, dominated by men. And for example, at the end of it, we had over 330% increase in female participation in the areas that we focused on, be it through our distributors or even the retail general trade. So we are very proud to be changing the landscape of Sri Lanka.
Mrs. Wickremasinghe, when you talk about Munchee and specifically you as a corporate leader, we talk about sustainability. Can you explain about it, please?
We are integrating sustainability into the core of our business. We are working with farmers to introduce better agriculture practice, to digitalize systems, to bring technology to a community that would otherwise not really be integrated into such things. If I were to give you examples, we have stopped using chemical fertilizer when we are growing soya by 100%. We are fixing the nitrogen naturally. We had to do a lot of work with our farmers because you need to educate people, you need to show them new ways of doing things. We use a lot of eggs. They come in the form of caged hens. To me, it's not a sustainable way when you look at animal welfare. And now, more than 80% of the eggs we buy are cage-free eggs. Our youth is very important. Educating children, giving them opportunities, it's all a part of our business drive.
Actually, it takes a woman to look at such leadership, Mrs. Wickremasinghe, which brings me to the next question about women empowerment. I think you have a large role to play there as well.
I think every woman who has an opportunity to make change has a responsibility. And I have some fabulous female leaders in our organization. But what we find generally is the pool of women who apply for senior leadership roles is limited. We need to change that landscape. We enable women to apply for bigger roles. And it's a big ask. Some of it is societal, cultural. Women also have multiple roles they have to play. We talk about diversity, but it is easy to say this. It is not so easy. I mean, you're a woman. You understand the challenges that we face. Until I had my son, I didn't realize the conflicting roles a woman has to play in being a mother and choosing a career. How can we make it easier for women? And it's like that program we did with IFC. We reached out to a lot of our distributors and we said, integrate the female family members into your business. The program was so well accepted. So many distributors said, I really wasn't thinking about getting my daughters involved, but now they are. And they're proud. Sometimes it's that little thrust of seeing beyond the cultural norms. I mean, that's how we make a difference.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's so much appreciation that us women are looking at. It's actually a seat at the table. Which brings me to another dilemma that Sri Lankan corporates are facing, the tax.
Tax, yeah. Look, we have gone through a massive economic crisis, and I think the government needs to widen the tax brackets. They've tried and they've done some of it. We need to have governance and transparency. All these systems should be digitalized. There were drives to do it, but never got implemented. And I think governments need to take this upon. Look, a country needs to tax people, businesses, because governments need revenue. But it has to be done in a sustainable manner. How we went a too low tax structure to extremely high one, people really struggled. I think the government really needs to see how you balance this off. And I think from a government's point of view, they need to be much more transparent on how they spend our money. And one of the things I think, not happy with, we're not seeing public expenditure being reduced. And I think government has a responsibility because when tax money is raised, it has to be used efficiently. And I think there's a lot that can be done.
Going back to your overseas expansion plans, how will you be raising money? I know that many a time stock exchange has approached you.
we are looking at growth outside the country because that's where our business is right now. And given the current restrictions that we have for valid reasons, we need to raise funds outside the country, because if we need to invest in in hard currency, we need to raise that, and it is challenging. The cost of capital for Sri Lankan companies is huge. We are just coming out of a default rating, so I mean we are paying a premium on our capital that we source from outside, and this is one of the biggest disadvantages Sri Lankan businesses have, because their counterparts in other countries have access to very low interest finance.
Mrs. Wickremasinghe, what is the way forward for CBL Group?
I look at ourselves as being, beyond being a Sri Lankan company, we're going to have a global footprint, and that's the stage we are setting. You have to have that bigger vision. It's a process, it's a journey. I mean, this journey thus far has been, over 55 years. You can't just say, I'm going to be. You have to put the work behind it. You have to, rally a great team of people. And I have to say something about our team at CBL. I am so blessed to have the people in our organization that we do. I mean, the passion that they bring into the business, the energy is phenomenal. And we are what we are today is because of everybody who has, worked in the past, who are working now, and who look at the future, developing our future leaders. That's what drives it.
It is also about the leadership, Mrs. Wickremasinghe, and thank you so much for being candid and saying it as it is. Thank you very much for making time for us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.